Welcome to the channel. I'm a doctor. I've seen things that don't always fit into textbooks. Moments that no protocol can prepare you for. Some of these stories are my own. Others were shared with me by colleagues, nurses, paramedics, people who, like me, carry the weight of these moments long after the shift ends. Not every emergency begins with sirens. Sometimes it begins with a child, tears streaming down her face, and something wrapped tightly in her arms. This isn't just a story about medicine. It's about loyalty, love, and a hospital staff with no protocol for that. Not every story begins like this. It was Sunday around 10:15 a.m. The ER was strangely quiet. Just a couple of patients under observation, and I was sipping coffee before checking on the pending cases from the shift. And then the door slammed open. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, running, tears streaming down her face, clutching something wrapped in a blanket in her arms. "Please help. He can't breathe." It's not every day you see something like that. She screamed with such force, such desperation that everyone dropped what they were doing. A nurse jumped up immediately. A resident rushed to open the trauma room. I was already moving toward her, having no idea what we were about to face. "Room 2? Call pediatrics," the resident shouted. We all moved at once. And for a moment, the hospital wasn't routine anymore. It was raw, urgent chaos. The girl was shaking, holding that bundle in her arms like it was the most fragile thing in the world. "What happened?" I asked. "He can't breathe. He's going to die." It's hard enough to see an adult in distress, but when you imagine a baby, something that small, suffering, it hits different. The nurse gently, but quickly placed the bundle on the gurney.
Ow.
And then we all froze. Because what we saw was not what we expected. Silence, not the awkward kind. The kind that knocks the breath out of you. The kind that makes time stop. Lying on the stretcher was something tiny, wrapped in an old blue cartoon-printed blanket, barely showing 2 little ears and 1 trembling paw hanging over the edge. It wasn't a baby. It was a puppy. One of the interns, the youngest, whispered under his breath, "Are you serious?" Another, trying to stay composed, covered his mouth to hide a nervous smile. Nobody wanted to laugh, but we were all just stunned. The little girl, on the other hand, didn't hesitate. She clung to the gurney, leaned over the small body, and said through tears, "Please help him." Then, with the most heartbreaking innocence I've ever heard, she added, "He can't breathe well. I love him so much." And just like that, the air returned to the room. Those simple, raw, devastating words brought us back to focus, because in that moment, we realized something essential. Yes, it wasn't a typical case. It wasn't a human patient. We didn't even know if we were allowed to treat him, but it was still an emergency.
Oh.
And most importantly, it was real. Painfully real to her. That little girl didn't see an animal. She saw her friend. Family. Someone who was dying. And that was enough. No one needed to give orders or raise their voice. We just looked at each other, and in that silent way that only happens in meaningful moments, we all knew exactly what to do. The intern went back to his duties in the observation ward. The rest of us put on gloves. One brought oxygen, another prepped a clean gurney. We didn't know if we could save him. We were going to try. With gentle hands, we laid the small body on a clean sheet. He was warm, but not in a good way. It felt like a fever. The girl stayed right beside him, holding his paw tight, her knuckles white from gripping so hard. She stroked behind his ears and whispered, "Almost there. Hang on, you're going to be okay." No one in that room was thinking about protocol anymore. We were just thinking about helping. I placed my stethoscope on his tiny chest and listened. You didn't need to be a vet to know something was wrong. His lungs made a bubbling sound, like fluid trapped inside. His breathing was fast, hard to tell if he was panting or struggling. He had discharge from his nose, watery eyes, and his chest rose with effort. One of the nurses, half joking, said, "Should we give him oxygen?" And another answered without hesitation, "Why not?" So we did. We found a pediatric nasal cannula, one of the tiny ones we use for babies. With patience and the same care we'd give any fragile patient, we gently fitted it near his snout. And there he was, Ferrule, breathing oxygen. An image so odd it almost made us smile, but he calmed down, closed his eyes, breathed more slowly, like he knew we were trying to help. One of the residents pulled out his phone and called a vet friend. The conversation was surreal. Hey, before you say I'm crazy, I need your help. We've got one of your patients in the human R. Silence, then laughter. And finally, with a mix of kindness, humor, and professionalism, the vet replied, "Okay, what's going on?" We described the symptoms, and she started walking us through the case like it was some weird emergency TV show. Does he have a fever? We all looked at each other. None of us knew what a dog's normal temperature was. So we checked yes rectally. 104.9 Fahrenheit, I said. It's a fever. Bad, but not critical. Is he moving his limbs? Yes, barely, but yes. Is he making any sounds while breathing? It's like groaning or snoring? Yes, like a tiny growl with every exhale. The vet began forming her diagnosis, mild to moderate pneumonia. Probably bronchopneumonia. All the while, the little girl stayed next to him. She didn't say much, just pet him, and kept repeating, "You're going to be okay." At one point I leaned down and asked softly, "What's his name? Toby?" She answered, smiling through her fear. That kind of proud, terrified smile only a child with a broken heart can give. Then someone said, "Should we do a chest x-ray?" Just to be sure. It sounded insane. But we were too far in to stop now. The vet guided us on how to position him, and with that in mind, we wrapped Toby carefully and headed to radiology. We explained the situation to the tech. To be honest, he didn't look thrilled about x-raying a dog, so we brought out our secret weapon, the little girl. When he saw her standing there, hugging her best friend, with eyes full of hope, he didn't say a word, just nodded. He got it. We placed Toby on the table. While prepping the machine, the tech's demeanor changed. Looking at that tiny puppy, still and calm, oxygen mask on, he smiled. His first smile of the day. Well then, challenge accepted. And the most amazing part, Toby stayed perfectly still, completely calm, like he knew we were helping. The x-ray came out perfect. What we saw confirmed it. A pattern consistent with mild pneumonia. Nothing extreme, but serious enough to need antibiotics. We messaged the vet the image, and she confirmed it. We returned to the ER. The oxygen had helped. Toby was breathing easier and even wagged his tail, faint. But there, we gave him the first dose of the antibiotics she recommended. Then, carefully, we explained everything to the girl. There's a vet clinic waiting for you. We just gave him a boost. She hugged us all, one by one. And before leaving, she said, "Thank you for helping him. Toby is my best friend and my family. He wasn't a human patient, but he was someone very important." We saved the bond between a child and her best friend, because love doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it crawls on four legs, with a wet nose and eyes that break your heart when they hurt. And in moments like that, medicine forgets about species, rules, protocols, because sometimes all it needs is heart. If you've ever experienced something like this with your pet or with someone you love, regardless of shape or size, share it in the comments. We'd love to hear your story if this story touched your heart. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next here. We tell real stories that remind us why it's always worth caring, even for the smallest among us. Till next time.